Right, so welcome to Rising Trailblazers. My name is Holly, and this is a taster session to get a feel for what Rising Trailblazers is like. Maybe you'll come and join me for the rest of the half term, maybe you won't. But either way, I hope you'll really enjoy the session this evening. So, the lesson we're going to do this evening is actually taken from last half term, week two, and our topic, our theme for last half term was jungle adventure. So all of the work that we did was around that theme. And each week we do a little section on accurate writing and grammar, a little section on unusual vocabulary and practicing our vocabulary skills. And then the final part of the lesson, we do a little bit of creative writing. And then in week five, we usually bring all of those ideas together and have a big checklist of all of the things that we've covered in the 4 weeks before that. And we come up with our own individual, really good pieces of writing. So let's get going. So to have a little warm up, we're going to write a simile about this image. Now, you can give your answers into the chat box, or you can jot them down on your paper, or if you've got an adult or a sibling with you, then you can discuss your ideas with them. Now, a simile is when we say something is like something else or is as something else. You can pick anything from that image. You might pick the vines or the leaves or even just the general sort of jungle effect that's going on. Hello, Oscar. Don't worry about arriving a little bit late. We're just doing our first little warm up, and all you've missed is me explaining how Rising Trailblazers works. But you'll pick it up as you go along. Hello. Now, Oscar has said hello in the chat box, and that's a reminder to all of you that you can talk to me in the chat box. So you can share your simile, or you can ask questions, or share other ideas. Right, we've got two different daisies who've both shared their simile. So the first daisy says the jungle is as dark as night, which is great, comparing how dark the jungle is to the night sky, which is very dark, isn't it? So that's a really good one. Well done. And the other daisy says the vines are twisty like a snake. I like that. I like that you've looked at the shape of the vines and thought, what could I compare that with? And actually, that is really similar to the one that I came up with before. So my one is the vines twisted around the tree like a long brown snake. So Daisy, our similes are very similar. And all I've got in mind is a little bit more descriptive vocabulary to try and really help paint a picture within my simile. Ad says the leaf is as spiky as a hedgehog. Very nice comparison there. And Oscar says the jungle is as complex as a labyrinth. Now that is really good, Oscar. I like that. You've obviously looked at that image and thought, where would you go? And you're right, it's as complex as a labyrinth. Really good. Okay, we're going to move on from our warm up and we're going to get started with accurate writing. So I've chosen to look at active and passive voice because it's a bit of a tricky one and you might have covered it before, in which case this will be some good practice. You might not have covered it before, so it might just be a nice little introduction to active and passive voice. So, what are they, and why is one right and the other wrong? And there's not really a right and wrong one, but why do teachers sometimes say you need to write in the active voice or the passive voice? Let me know in the chat box. So there might be some of you that are thinking, I just not even quite sure what active and passive voice is, and that's fine. So I'm going to begin to explain it to you. So, um, oh look, Daisy says passive voice is used when the writer wants to make it more mysterious. It can make things mysterious, certainly, in some ways. And Ida says active voice, the window was smashed. Okay, let's have a little look at this definition and see if that sheds some light on active and passive voice. So, active voice is when the subject of a sentence performs the action of the verb in your sentence, while the passive voice, it's a bit more back to front. So, you have your subject in your sentence, but your subject receives the action of the verb. So you can see the examples on the screen. The first one is in active voice. My granddad discovered the Thai jungle. Thai rainforest. Sorry, got jungles on the mind today. And you can see there that the granddad, who is the subject of the sentence, I've color coded it to help you, discovers the Thai rainforest. So they're doing the action. Whereas if that was in the passive voice, it would be the Thai rainforest was discovered by my granddad. And you can see there that the subject becomes the Thai rainforest, but it's discovered by the granddad. So it is the receiver of the action in the sentence. And there's another great simple example for you there. The snake ate the explorer, and the explorer was eaten by the, that should say snake, not cat. Maybe that was a test to see if you spotted the difference. So hopefully that's beginning to make things a bit more clear. Let's see if you can write a very simple sentence in the active voice and the passive voice. See if you can do something both ways. Now, a really simple one might be something like, Holly read the book. That's in the active voice. How could we change that into the passive voice? How could we change Holly read the book into the passive voice? Daisy, excellent example. Daisy says Daisy put on the glasses. The glasses were put on by Daisy. Brilliant. You've got your active and passive example there. Oscar says the book was read by Holly. And that is an excellent and accurate example of turning Holly read the book, which is active voice, into passive. You did a brilliant job there. Well done, Oscar. And Dylan says the same as well. So well done, Dylan. So I think it sounds like you're all getting the hang of it, which is brilliant. The other Daisy, oh no, is it Jess? Jess has shared some examples and they're very good. Well done. Let's have a look at the ones that are on the screen now. They are in the passive voice. Let's see if you can switch them into the active voice. Okay. You can say them out loud if you're working with a sibling or a parent, or you can do them on the paper or in the chat box. It's entirely up to you. Well done, Nico. There's some excellent answers. Well done. Lots of accuracy. Well done, guys. I'm going to put the answers on the screen so you can self-check how you did. You might have phrased them slightly differently, but if you've generally got the order right, then that's fine. Um, so there you can see all four sentences. So why do teachers often ask you to write in the active voice? And why not the passive voice? And what's the difference? Well, it can be quite complicated. Um, and generally, I think it's best to write how your teachers want you to write. However, what it can do is change the emphasis in your sentence, what the focus is, what you're drawing your reader's mind's eye to. And it can sometimes slightly change the meaning in the sentence as well. And if you go backwards and forwards between active and passive voice, it can make your writing sound a bit jumbled and clunky. So it's best to pick one and stick with it. But there are reasons to use passive voice, and maybe when you move up through your studies, you might begin to experiment a bit more with using active or passive voice in your writing, and using it on purpose to create effects. So I'm going to give you an opportunity now to have a little bit of writing, completely self-directed. I would like you to write a simple sentence or two about this image, about in any way you like. But I would like you to write it in the active voice and then in the passive voice. So you're going to write it twice. Okay. If you're a quick finisher, then you can write the next sentence that would follow each sentence, and think about, would it be different for the one that's active and the one that's passive? Would it change what the focus of the sentence is? Would it change what you think to write about next? Okay. Have a little go in the chat box, see how you get on, and then once we've finished this, we'll move on to looking at some vocabulary. There's some really lovely examples, and I like that there's a variety as well, that because you've had freedom to pick what you're writing about, there's a nice variation. Daisy, I'm not sure your mummy would be very happy with that. Um, think about now, looking at those two sentences, what would you write next? You don't have to write it, but have a think about it. So, for example, Maeve's example is the tree was climbed by the monkey. The other one would be the monkey climbed the tree. So if you had the tree was climbed by the monkey, maybe the next sentence might be something like it was a big, tall, broad tree, or the tree stood firm, or it might be something about the tree. Whereas if you did have it the other way around, with the monkey climbed the tree, you might say, and then it jumped, or and then it leapt, or it heard a noise in the distance, and the focus would be on the monkey. So that's how it can impact your writing, because it changes the focus, and it can change the focus and direction of your writing. Okay. Let's all be nice, please, in the chat box, you funny lot. Okay, we're going to move on to some vocabulary now. On your worksheet, you will see 5 words: verdant, abundant, cascade, germinate, and creeper. Now, they're not designed to be words that you've never heard before. Some of them you might know instantly what they mean, and some of them you might have heard of, but you're not entirely sure. Now, I don't ask my Rising Trailblazers to match those words to definitions. We match them to synonyms, and synonyms are similar words with, well, they're different words, but with similar meanings. Okay, so see if you can mix up these words with one of their synonyms. Mix up, match up. Match up the words, please. Don't mix them up. Really good effort, Daisy. I'll give everybody else a chance to match them up and then I'll give you the answers. If you're at home and you're not a quick writer, you don't have to write them down. You can discuss them or say them aloud. As long as your brain is matching them up, then that's good enough for me. Okay, I think you've all had a good go at this now. Well done, Maeve. Well done, Oscar. Um, let's get some answers. Here we go. So verdant is a synonym for green. But when we talk about something being verdant, we normally talk about like a verdant meadow or a verdant forest. So lots of green shrubs and things growing, generally speaking. Abundant means something is growing well or there is lots of it. There might be an abundance of cake at a tea party, but it can, if something is growing really well, it could be growing abundantly. Well done, Nico. And to cascade means to fall. So if something is cascading down like a waterfall, it's the water falling down, cascading. When something germinates, a synonym for that is to sprout. So if you plant a little seed, when it sprouts, it has germinated. And finally, creeper is a synonym for vine, but also creep and creeper. You might think of like Halloween things and someone spooky, but it's also another word for a vine or for a plant that creeps and curls and twists around things. So well done for how many you all did really well. I saw in the chat box they were almost all perfect answers. So well done. Really good decoding skills. So what we're going to do now is write a very short description inspired by this image. I'd like you to try and use some of this week's words in your description if you can. We're going to take a few minutes to do this. You can write it on paper or in the chat box. And your description needs to be a bit more than 1 sentence, but no more than 3 or 4 sentences. And if you want to really challenge yourself, you can experiment with using active and passive voice and see if it changes the focus of what you're writing. So you'll be thinking and writing at the same time. That's a nice start, Nico. Well done. Very good. You managed to get verdant, creepers, germinated, and abundant. And in fact, I think you got all of them, didn't you, Nico? What have we got? Oh no, I was looking at daisies. They come when they come in thick and fast into the chat box. They get confused and they all start popping in and flying up. So let's go back to Nico's quickly. Nico got verdant, creepers, germinated, and abundant. Very well done, Rowena. The Daisy, the verdant green plants were growing abundantly, the shadows darker than night, and the vines twisted like faces in the dappled moonlight. Very nice. The cascading waterfall glinted ominously in the half moon's light. Well, that's very good. Well done. I think, Daisy, with that writing, you could do some real experimenting with trying to sort of mix up where the subject is in your sentence and whether they are doing or receiving the verb. It'd be really interesting to see which direction it takes your writing and your ideas. Oscar, very good. Well done. Ida, well done. And Daisy, excellent. This is fabulous. When I do taster sessions, I never know what everybody's work is going to be like. So it's always a really nice surprise when there's such excellent work. So well done, all of you. If you do join my Rising Trailblazers group, which is on Monday nights, we get to know each other a bit more, and then I'm able to give you really good feedback to help move your work along a bit more. Right, let's move on to creative writing. So this is the last part of our session this evening. What I tend to do usually is ask my students in Rising Trailblazers to collect up all of their writing. So even if you're putting things into the chat box, to write them down on your sheet too, so that when it comes around to week 5, you've got pages and pages of really good notes and ideas and vocabulary and sentences and experiments. And then that feeds into that last piece of creative writing that we do. So personification. I'm hoping you know what it is. If you don't worry, you will soon. If you do know what it is, can you give me an example in the chat box? Beautiful example from Ida. Ida says the light danced along the road. Nico says the sun smiled happily. Oscar says the leaves swayed in the wind. Very nice. Okay, some fabulous examples there. So personification is when we give human characteristics to non-human things. So let's go through the examples on the screen so I can revisit it for those of you who might be a little bit unsure. So the waterfall rushed excitedly past me. That word excitedly, it gives a human feeling to that waterfall, because waterfalls can't really feel excitement, can they? My bored watch ticked tiresomely. That could be part of a tongue twister. So watches, they can't feel boredom. They can't do things in a tiresomely way. So the watch is brought to life. Her hiking boots cried out for repairs. So crying out again, speaking, making noises, not something that, or communicating, not something hiking boots can do. So we're going to try and create some really good examples of personification around some jungle ideas. There are 3 main ways that we can use personification to bring objects to life. So there's 3 types of things we can get non-human objects to do. Do you know what they are? You can have a guess in the chat box. Yeah, really good. Daisy says movement. So the actions that we give something. So we might say that the pencil danced. Oscar says voice. Yeah, so the things they say, so they might speak. Lots of you are giving some really good examples as well. Here we go. We've got their actions, their feelings, and their appearance. Okay, so their actions are the things that they do. They might say things, they might, I don't know, send a text message, they might hug you. Those are all human actions. They might talk to you, they might say things. Those are actions. Their feelings, how they feel. Giving them human feelings is another way that you can personify them. And finally, their appearance. If you think of a cucumber, it could be described as having a green jacket. And that would personify it, because cucumbers don't wear jackets. So with that in mind, we are going to have a go at personifying a couple of things that you might find in the jungle if you were on a jungle adventure. So to start with, I'm going to ask you just to jot down actions, feelings, and appearance ideas for these hiking boots. That's all you have to do. You don't have to create any personification just yet. Don't rush ahead. Just jot down some ideas for these. I'm going to show you my ones. Okay. So, yeah, good Daisy, good Oscar, some really nice ideas in the chat box. I like lonely, Oscar. That would be an interesting way to write about the boots. So I picked sighing loudly as the action, tiredness as the feeling, and peeping eyelets as their appearance. I just imagine the little eyelets where the laces are would be their little eyes. Now, you don't have to use all of your ideas that you've come up with, but it might inspire you to write something a bit more interesting than just saying the hiking boots smiled at me. We can do better than that. We can be more creative than that. And the one I came up with was the boots sighed loudly with tangled laces cascading from their tired eyelets. So you can see there, I also integrated cascading from our vocabulary list. So have a go at doing the hiking boots yourself. You can use my example to help you. And I look forward to seeing what you come up with in the chat box. There are some very good ideas in the chat box. I'm going to read a couple of them out. So, Daisy says the boots groaned exasperately as the leather coat he wore bent and tore. Very nice. So, talking about the boots as if like the leather of them is a coat is a really nice idea as well. That makes them really sound like a person, doesn't it? Oscar says the lonely hiking boots stood still, regretting their thin coat while trying to fight against the weather. Another really nice thought-provoking one as well. Daisy says the boots were worn out by laughing through the meadows. Oh, really nice. And a complete contrast with everybody else's. You've all got such different and interesting ideas. That's a lovely idea, saying they were worn out from all the laughter. You could say, but laughter from playing through the meadows, maybe. But really good. Ida says the tired hiking boots cried out in pain. Okay, yep, feeling pain would give a human attribute to the boots. And Nico says the worn out boots rested tiredly as they looked out at the beautiful sunset. That's a nice idea as well. So the action that you've given them, Nico, is that they are looking out with their eyes. Wonderful. I'm so impressed. Right, let's have a go at this one. And then we will probably have to bring today's session to a close. So first thing to do is jot down some actions. This snake could be doing some human actions, human feelings, and human appearance. Now, when we personify animals, it's tricky sometimes because some things animals do that are a bit human-like. So we got to try and make sure that they sound more human-like and less animal-like. Now, I'm not going to give you my ideas or example for this one. So this is free choice for you. As soon as you're ready, you can share yours in the chat box. Well done. Who was that? Nico. Nico, I'm going to give you some constructive feedback on yours. So yours is very good. Um, so Nico said the twisting snake danced around the long branch as it violently hissed in anger. Hissed. It's a perfectly good example of personification, and it does personify the snake. But hissed is something that a snake does. So if you were able to switch that for something a bit more human-like, I think that would really improve what you've written. So maybe something like as it violently argued or um, retorted. Well done, Ida. Well done, Daisy. Yeah, absolutely, Nico. Shouted would work. That's a really good example of what you could put there instead of hissed. I mean, if you imagine a snake hissing, it's like a snake. But if you imagine a snake shouting, it is not only a bit weird, but it's a bit more human-like. Very good, Dylan. The snake stared at his prey. Um, could the snake do anything else, Dylan? Could you have the snake, or you could possibly include an adverb that might tell us how the snake is feeling. So, for example, the snake stared at his prey furiously. And then you'd give a feeling to the snake as well, wouldn't you? Really good. Okay, well done, everybody. Some really, really good work. I'm very impressed. So we are at the end of the session now. And every week I set an independent challenge for you to do in your own time after the session. And this taster session independent challenge is to develop a creative paragraph that showcases active and passive voice, new vocabulary, and personification. And I imagine it would be connected to the theme of a jungle adventure to show what you have learned and practiced and improved on in the session today. So all that's left to do is for you to do a quick self-assessment. So where you think about how you found the challenge of today's work and how much you enjoyed it. So you can give me a little code in the chat box. You might have A2 or C1, or you might even have a combination. So you might be somewhere between an A and a B and somewhere between a 2 and a 3. Once you have put your self-assessment in the chat box, you are free to go. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you all this evening. I hope that you enjoyed it too. And I hope to see you all in Rising Trailblazers. I think you'd all bring some really good creative writing skills to the group. Right, that's it from me. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you soon.